Welcome to the video. Uncle Four Eyes here again. I'm going to try and do a quick one. This one is going to be on Mike Mignola, Marvel or non-Hellboy covers. So just the covers and just, primarily Mignola, even though Mignola's got other people, credited with the cover as well. And I just wanted to particularly show off arguably probably one of my favorite artists, period. But there's just something about like his art that stands out more. So like when you're flipping through long boxes and stuff at like wherever, flea markets or whatever, I feel like he's one of those that his art stands out and has a very like, at least my trained eye now at this point obviously can spot one. But there's just something about the way he goes about making decisions on a cover that essentially makes him stand out among the crowd of other people. I think the others would be someone like a Bill Sienkiewicz. But other than that, there's more, but that's the other one that comes off the top of my head where, you kind of get stopped in your tracks and you're like, what is this? Or this didn't look like the 5 or 6 other like issues before this, and it doesn't look like it 5 or 6 issues after it. So I'm gonna start with I would imagine one of the earliest runs. I don't have every Mignola cover ever made, and I don't have all the ones that I do own on hand right this second, so this video might either get a second part or I might just delete it and do it when I have a better selection. So without further ado, we're going to do the first earliest one I can think of based off of just, eyeing it. And I think it's going to be this issue 304, 1984 copy of Incredible Hulk. And this is where, like, again, it's fascinating to see kind of where his early work is and his thoughts on his early stuff. Like hearing interviews about what his thoughts are on his own work is kind of interesting because is just like super humble and is like, I think I'm a shitty drawer. I don't think I can draw very well. Or I just wanted to be an inker and just, or whatever, like he didn't seem, and again, most of these won't have him inside either. Just, I'm looking at just the cover, but, every once in a while I might come in here and just to look to see like what else, is worth putting like inside when this is the outside. There's a guy named Mandelo. I am actually not familiar with that guy's name. Shout out in the comments who that is, because I can't seem to find the other credits for everyone else who's done stuff in this comic. Like, I was gonna check just so that I can be like, oh yeah, that's who he is, and at least give him credit. But yeah, this doesn't seem to have credits from what I can tell, unless they're somewhere else. Anyways, yeah, like one of his early ones, you can definitely tell his style. It's just, yeah, it's different. There's just something about like how he blacks. He hits stuff with his black. When someone either like, this is a funny thing. This is kind of a Jack Kirby. Oh, Kirby's another one, obviously, that has amazing covers. I could spend like multiple parts on covers because I have a lot more covers of his. Again, I'm not doing any Hellboy based on the fact that if you were going to make your own covers off of your own IPs, of course they're going to look like your style, or they're going to all be good covers. Like, he doesn't make a bad cover. And I even think these are kind of good, but not great, but not bad. They still, again, but yeah, he's got that Kirby like effect where depending on who inks him or works side by side with him or whatever, I feel like creates a different outcome in his style. And we'll see that over the course of these covers where, people say that, there were good there was good Kirby inkers, and off the top of my head, I can't think of them. But there was like one or two that everyone was like, yeah, like if he inks Kirby, then it's the most purest form of Kirby or the most appealing. And then and there's some others that are less than like less than better. But anyways, this is just again, I think this is early in his career in general. So to just see kind of like what he brings to the table, but like again, you can see how like high contrast with some of the stuff, like blacks out that foot, and sometimes it's not that he can't draw a foot, or again going back to someone else, like let's say like Todd McFarlane or whatever. It's like just because he blacks out the foot doesn't mean he doesn't know the anatomy of a foot or he can't draw a good foot. Sometimes you need to black this out right here in order to highlight other areas. Just like with white, which is abundance of light, and black, which is, the absence of light. Those are going to be your contrasts. And obviously, so that pops here, obviously, with the black and white contrast. So you'll need to also then, have it, they always say, like, have a place for your eyes to rest. And so obviously you could say that with the bottom, this bottom here, with the white. But then you can also rest in the blacks of ink as well, because there's nothing inside of that. And it's a solid silhouette, just of the foot. Like, I can tell that that's his big toe right there, and his other toes right there. That's his heel. Like, that's a very, like, even if you were just to, like, do the old inch rule, like, I can kind of tell what's going on there, But that's it, Anyways, I might not be able to articulate perfectly, but, like, even in this background, you can tell that, like, there's some crazy ship thing going on there. Again, he's hitting certain areas with black. He's not starting out with his super iconic look yet, like where I think he eventually goes. And we're going to start to see, that evolve over time. And I think he even was, would be someone who would admit that his stuff doesn't get into a place to where he likes it until far later in his career, or just, down the way. So like these early things, the early stuff is obviously going to be just to make, just to pay the bills, just to get his foot in the door. Once again, this is a 305. I noticed that, there's a good 4 or 5 other issues of Incredible Hulk that have Mignola color covers that I don't own. So I'm on my hunt for collecting every non-Hellboy or non-Mignola propertied covers to other things, so like Marvel, DC, etc. And this guy's got Gordon. His name sounds familiar, but I'm spacing on his first name. He also, I think, does a pretty good job of... Oh, here it is. What does it say? Oh, wait. Oh, no, that's not the same guy. They didn't tell me here. You got Sal Buscema penciling, which that's a pretty sweet. It's a pretty sweet Hulk there. Got the Sal Buscema Hulk face. I'm a fan of that. Like, I think Hulk really speaks to me in its way to articulate things. Like, I need to read more Hulk or look at more Hulk examples for Podhead Joe. I think that there's a lot there for the oh, here you go. There's some Mignola right there. I want this, I want Rocket Raccoon stuff as well. Ooh. Nice and dirty. Nothing like a... Excuse me. I had to see if it smelled funny. I wanted to make sure it wasn't anthrax. Because, anthrax wasn't around in 84, but, or at least wasn't popular until the 90s, till the 2001s. But yeah, like, this stuff right here is what's making me go, I need to look back at this and find, like, some... I need to steal some body language and stuff. Some ideas here because I'm liking that. But yeah, going back to this is nothing too special. Again, I think this is just like there's nothing that screams to me Mignola very well. I mean, again, I think like it's not bad, but like, and I honestly looks a little bit, like someone else, obviously, So if it was penciled first, I'd like to see what the penciling looks like, so that then when you look at the inks, sometimes that inks completely transforms it, and sometimes that's a good thing, sometimes it's a bad thing. But yeah, there's just something about wanting him to completely ink himself, and no one else touch it, just for with any artists, like I kind of want them to ink their own pencils and stuff, just to kind of have that full effect, that's synonymous with that person, if they have not just their penciling stage but their inking stage kind of representative of who they are. Again, I think this goes back to the dark blacked out areas, even though it's kind of interesting, like the overprint is kind of fast, like weird, where it almost looks kind of like patchy marker, where it's not really super black in areas. It's kind of funny how like that looks like what the original would look like, probably prior to having it scanned and in. So like the original art probably has some of those imperfections, but it just seems like it comes out in the final product too. And this is just a cover clearly of energy or whatever. And I don't know if this is necessarily something that Mignola would do or ever really takes akin to. This one has a Lealoa. I butchered the hell out of that name. Again, they don't say anything in the thing, but obviously the nice thing about Mignola was he was always his signature was really well announced on the cover. So like it's hard not to know what a Mignola cover is, not just from the art but from his signature. And I think only so many do that. I know that like with some people they say like, oh well, if you sign it that you're kind of taking away from it, but some others say, well, you drew it, like take that fucking credit. Especially like in this case, I don't know the other guy or the other. I don't even know if it's a woman. I mean, they're not going to tell you in here. It's, I think it's still the old school Marvel where the only credit you're going to get is if you put your name on the cover. But yeah, that one's pretty straightforward. I think again that one screams like some Hellboyish kind of vibes, especially like early, like the first iteration of Hellboy, like. And then we've got this one that looks like it just has Mignola's name on it. So we're gonna look at this last Incredible Hulk comic, 309, 1985, and this is, I guess, if he was gonna ink himself, which I can see why you would want to obviously ink yourself, but like it's fascinating to see like there's a very simple, obviously Mignola ends up becoming like I feel like synonymous with like simplicity, and like it's all about like really creating this like aesthetic that's, I don't know, it kind of allows your eyes to kind of fill in the blanks, or there just to be this like kind of like how like in some games the said like if you do cell shading and whatnot, like that simplicity allows for, I don't know, obviously more cartoony look, but like there's just like an effect that makes it look like there's not so many things like fighting for your attention, or textures and stuff come off simpler or milder. Like clearly he's not like going in there and really creating a ton of texture with the rock. The rock's actually like negative space. It's kind of I think that's actually a little underwhelming in that, in that case. But like I think like the Hulk is really awesome. Like I find that to be pretty convincing. Like my homie likes the big sun with these little marks, me as well as do I. I think these are pretty decent for mountains, if they're especially if they're alien. I kind of feel like I'm taking some of those inspirations, from Mignola for like my backgrounds and stuff. And again, like the perspective is pretty straight on. These kind of are small, but I guess it could work. That character here is pretty simple. Like his bow is definitely nothing. Like this is where I kind of wonder like if this is Mignola trying to figure out what he really wants to say with certain things, because like it's kind of his hand over down there is kind of underwhelming. Now again, I've done that too, where I've made it so that you simplify something, but as a cover, I don't know. I don't know if that's it's a hand clearly. That guy's got what looks like a like a stocking around his mouth, which is just shading, which I don't find too many of that same markings in this other than that. So I mean, he's not again void of being criticized. I just think sometimes like maybe there's just something about that particular cover that makes me kind of go, why is his style choices there stand out or are contradictory of like just even like the last cover that I looked at. We're going to look at some X-Men Classic, or Classics, I guess, if you want to make it plural, but it just says Classic. Now, I think these are all just reprints, but they're reprinted with Mignola covers, which I absolutely adore these. This is also 91, so he's getting closer to what he wants in his own designs and stuff. And I think from like about 85 was like what we just looked at, even though I'm sure I could go back to 85. You know what, let's stick with 85. Let's go to Alpha Flight number 29. Now this is going to be again closer to, because I kind of want to see the progression I want to have you guys see that as well along with me, where again whack is sick. I'm terrible at enunciating anything. Siak. That's probably nothing like what it's supposed to say. I probably butchered the hell out of it. Oh, here we go. Mignola's inside of here too. Bonus. I forget sometimes, you got to double check and say, well, is he in here as well as the cover? In this case, he is. Again, I don't see a whole lot of Mignola in these. Like, he is at least the artist. So I think he and Gary Talayaoke. I am butchering the hell out of these guys' names. Not everyone can have a name like Jim Shooter. But yeah, they're artists, so I'm assuming they must have bounced back and forth between the layouts or the penciling and inking, even though it looks all the same. I don't know, that's bizarre. Again, I think that must have been a team that has done stuff on other covers. I don't know. Anyways, not too worried about the innards right now. But like, you can still see like weird choices that like, I feel like this is something that like the Image guys like cribbed from, like took away from, was like Liefeld or whatever. It's just like, yeah, I like that screen door effect. Like, we're gonna just take that. Back in 85, when they were probably still figuring out what they wanted to do or get into the gig. But yeah, again, got another Hulk. Again, this time it's like you do the lines inside for the shading. Again, this doesn't feel very Mignola either. That's what I think is fascinating about this. Like, I like him as an artist and whatnot, but it's just like, I don't like it. My eyes finally gotten to the point where I can see it, but like, I don't really. This is not very convincing, of a style. Again, and it might just be because he was, at the mercy of whatever Marvel wanted to do, but I think it's still worth, you know, studying what something, like what an artist looks like throughout their career and how that evolution essentially either finally creates like an iconic look down the road, one day, or, they fundamentally want to build a like when I was growing up, sometimes we were just like, oh, I want to try and find a style. It was really a heavy emphasis on the word style, for a lack of a better word, for, where it's like, oh, this will look like a Forever Four Eyes art piece, because my style will just jump out and immediately make you recognize it. Kind of like how with other artists that I see, when their art is just, flashed before my eyes, whoop, oh, I know what that was. Not that quick, but of course, but essentially, you feel like you've, this time, again, we're doing Mignola inside pencils. But yeah, like this one, again, some of this stuff, like this pose right here really feels Mignola. This black framing our characters, these creatures kind of look a bit Mignola-esque, especially again his early days. I didn't grab out the Bram Stoker Dracula Tops comics, but that's what this is kind of reminding me of, is that kind of style. Him trying to figure out the depth and how to really pull that off, because I feel like in this case he wasn't very successful, even though he was trying, where like this is close, but I feel like this is all foreground and this is all background, so it's just one or the other, which is not necessarily wrong, like bad, but like I think that kind of loses a tier step, where this one is far more like, you even have like these guys, where again this is probably something I probably take from him, where you have the closest thing right here at the bottom, and as you go up the page, or up, just as you go up in an image, usually it'll go further back into the distance, so the depth essentially starts down here and starts to go further back as you look up. So anytime, and a lot of times that helps, because then you have usually sky or something empty that is sky-like, like a void of air, whatever atmosphere, like in this case Kirby Crackle like style, so that then you can then put your title on top of it. But then same with, again, you have like a busy strip right here, but this is technically, if you don't count the back, obviously, because I just said that that's the furthest back piece, the cosmos, or whatever you want to call that, in the back is the furthest back. Then you have this little strip right here of creatures and whatnot. Then you blacken apparently out, and I would say that even like this is technically a gradient, or going like pulling this further back, this black, to where you're even getting, so like if you ever have those like pixel art framed pictures and stuff, where they cut out like stuff and they lay like a Mega Man X screen cap of a level, and some of the stuff kind of is staggered on like foam board and stuff. It kind of has that kind of effect, where if I was to take this cover and cut it up, I would have definitely dropped this like on the farthest back part of my canvas or whatever, put this one a little bit up higher, but then I would have put this like twice as further up, to where the image itself, if you were looking at like the front and the back from the top, like you were looking down at it, it'd be like a foot long, because you would need, or essentially it would feel like you would need that much distance from the very back to the very front in order to create that distance, that depth. And so yeah, then you have your essentially your heroes in the mid ground, I would say, and they're framed with black so that they stand out, they pop. So like this guy, his silhouette is white, bright. This guy kind of looks funny with his black bleeding into that black. That's probably not the greatest execution there. You know, Puck's a little bit like that too. And then you have more aliens or creatures, whatever, monsters in the front, and they're at the very bottom, and there's just a hint of like the back of their heads or like a hand coming. So, anyways, again, this looks like he inked this all his own, and again, I guess he was doing stuff inside as well. So that would be for another time as well to look at what his innards look like when it comes to drawing. We got some more Alpha Flight. This is actually going to be a longer video than I was going to expect. I don't know why. I thought I was going to just blast through these. Again, we've got a couple, I feel like, a very like iconic like Mignola poses. But then again, he still was doing a lot of this cross-hatching. Again, his hands are very almost like action figure hands, where they're just so like they're molded, only so detailed, to where they feel like they're kind of just like these, you know, there's not I mean, granted, you don't need 1,000 lines, but like it just reminds me of like when you have like a little molded hand of a figure, and like sometimes if it's like this, you might get like subtle depth in between, or like you can't tell there's, you know, a separation in between a finger when it's molded. So it just kind of reminds me of that. Again, this one, these guys are in the front. Obviously, he's farthest in front. The bottom, once again. So I've already broken down, I feel like, the formula at this point. You got this back area. You got skulls floating around. Again, that's I feel like a Mignola motif that he'll continue to work on. Like, these do not look like Mignola skulls, for example. Like, he definitely goes cartoonier. And again, that simplicity, I think, really starts to show when these are like realistic skulls. When he does like Hellboy era stuff, like they are the most like what do you call that, iconic look, where there's like the realistic, and then like the abstract, and then like there's somewhere in the middle where it's a little of exaggeration, abstract, and then realism. There's that little middle ground. I feel like that's where it gets to. But yeah, even this is like, you know, there's depth here and everything, and there's some space to see your characters. He's trying something here that I feel like, and I feel like this Puck, I feel like I subliminally took this Puck design, whether it's Mignola or just Puck in general, for Two Stock's design, which is a character I'm going to have in Chapter 2 of Puckhead Joe. There's something about his design that just makes me go, wow, if you just put two little mushroom stalks on his head, like, that would be that character. But anyways, going back to this, like, he's making these little dash lines here to kind of like show speed, but like the phasing out of the foot coming from wherever. Let's see, is he still penciling? Yeah, he's still penciling. Like, look at that. There's something about that screams both McFarland and Mignola. Just black that out. Make it scary, like bright-eyed, white-eyed, and teethed creature character. Trying to make this speed up a little bit faster. Yeah. Now here's another one where we got some color hold, which really kind of, I think, makes this one stand out. Again, we're in 85. At this point, it seems like Mignola's going to just be doing his own thing. Again, you've got this far background where if you do the color hold style, where there's no black line, that really will pull it back and kind of makes it almost like if you squint your eyes, or where that kind of blurs. So like that softens. And then these characters with their outlines and stuff, and they're also with like their stronger colors. Like this is a subdued kind of low saturated, mild color, and like you have these brighter colors and stronger, like black shadows and stuff like that inside. So like this one really shows like this one's up front. Now this one's kind of an opposite where like he's technically further than she is. Now I'm not saying it's all one formula, like just do it exactly, the way. But I just find it funny to think that like, it's sometimes it's easy to just be like, okay, well you have where's your most closest thing here? Okay, well then this is going to be your mid ground, and then this is your background, and you're trying to layer it so that it's convincing. Again, let's see. This time he's not penciling or inking. All right. Cool. Okay. Let's keep moving. I've got plenty of stuff going to go on to. We've got X-Men and Alpha Flight together in this one. Again, this is a cover that, will give you an idea for what multi-character images look like. Like you can tell that like you just black out like Rogue and like Phoenix Jean or whatever, and Kitty Pryde and all that stuff. If you really need to like silhouette the crap out of them, even though it's really interesting to see like you black out the body, but then you have this like highlight of the clothes, which I kind of like. I don't know why. It doesn't make any sense, except for it just being like in the case of like Jean down here, it's like why black out this character when you might not know who it is, but if you leave their iconic design of their clothes, like who that is. This could be any of the other werewolfy characters, even though she, I guess, looks more like she's flying than anything. So like, I don't know, it's definitely not going to be one of the werewolf X-Men. But with the hair, you could maybe, as a silhouette, you could get kind of confused. But then it's like, oh, but then she's got the green, the top and everything. Like, that's most likely Rogue. And then again, you got Alpha Flight in the back, where, again, there's a really interesting effect happening here. I don't know if you can see it. Like, further away, it doesn't really show. But, like, it seems like when you get close, like, there's this, like, duotone or something, like, effect that, like, plays tricks with your eyes. Like, there's that, like, almost like a Mobius effect or whatever you call it in the background. And that feels far different. And, I assuming that's the effect to then cause that to kind of, retreat back to the ground, or pull back background-wise. And then this to stay in the front where it's all dark. There's all the heavy blacks. We've got our character laying on the ground. Again, the closest thing here is person laying on the ground. Then these guys, and then these. And then I guess you could even, again, say the trees and the sky back there. But yeah, again, a lot of cool color choices. Like again, I like this purple color. Again, they look kind of like they're just ghosts or something. Kind of spooky. But yeah, again, looks like it's all him. He's got that's actually a pretty cool Wolverine right there. Like his Colossus looks pretty cool. All right, Alpha Flight 34. Again, this time he's doing like a little fun little thing. Like he starts to do this as well. Starts like making little gimmicks, like a little scroll piece of paper. Scroll piece of paper. And again, we got some white as the back, as the negative, so that everything else in the front kind of pops. Got some Ronin energy here. I think isn't this a key issue? Isn't this Lady Deathstrike's first appearance? Yeah, I think that's her right there. I can't remember. I'm sure it is. If not, I don't remember. But yeah, like he draws a pretty good Wolverine, And of course he does, because I'll show you in a minute. But yeah, this is pretty cool. Again, you got this like, I don't know, we call it like wave effect, almost that golden ratio look going. Again, you're just picking out strong shapes and everything. Like this one is one of my more favorited ones as well. Just the way it was executed in this case. More Alpha Flight, more Alpha Flight. Okay, we've got issue 36. This one we've got Mignola and Milgram. They're trying to like combine their names together, I guess, or something, because they both start with M. Again, we got that little scroll piece paper. This has like, for something about, there's something about the way that this reminds me of how a lot of comic characters like are running at you with a slight Dutch angle or whatever, like seem to be like a thing for like the Image guys and stuff. Like again, I think you can't help but think that like Mignola must have influenced those guys, and I'm sure that's been said, but there's just something about like, I can see like this is the early like iteration or like inspiration behind that, because like there's just something about this that screams like Liefeld's like or whatever, like his X Factor or whatever, when they're, you know, you've got certain characters kind of running at you. Again, it's also a staple of, I think, superhero comics anyways. But again, once again, you got this is a white cover. You just got a solid black angular ground. Got a little pieces of earth, rock, whatever to kick up. This one, again, kind of plays a little bit with the depth, but I think it kind of loses itself a little bit. Like, clearly, he's the main piece here. You know, we've got a solid foot coming from like the black into the black shoe, so like that's all one thing. Like I feel like that's a stylistic choice I would make, but clearly he's the closest, and then it's him, and then I think it's like this guy and Snowbird or whatever. But yeah, and then these guys in the background flying up, and I think it just kind of doesn't have the same depth effect, even though they clearly are like big, like from big to small. But I don't know, there's something about that just comes off not as successful. And then speaking of the same group of characters running at the screen, we've got an Alpha Flight 39 where there's more characters on the cover. And in this case, it's a bunch of Avengers too. So once again, we might as well cross-reference this because it's only like a couple issues before that. Like he's choosing to do a similar like approach for like this character, and how he kind of, his black isn't solid as it goes down his legs. I think like this really shouts. Oh, and this also is PCR. I have no idea who that is. You know, I'm always learning, but like, I can't seem to put my finger on. I can literally put my finger on it, but I don't know who that is. But this just, for something about this, like this to me screams a more Mignola cover than this, because like this looks like much more like a Mignola face here with this version of the character versus this one. And I don't know if it's because PCR is inking it or what, but yeah, there's just something about this that screams a little bit more Mignola in execution. Like this character, again, we've got characters running on a little strip of black down here, and then just it's all orange with a little bit of excitement lines or whatever they call them. And yeah, and it's just another messy, I feel like, to some extent, but there's some that I feel like pop or works, but I don't know, there's something about some of the stacking, but stylistically, I think most of that works as well. It's another thing too, where like not everyone can draw like every character. Like I think he nails Puck and Wolverine, little short, hairy guys, but other characters maybe not so much. Okay, now we'll go back to this one just real quick. But yeah, we're in 91 at this point, so this is where I feel like again you're going to get a much more confident, much more stylistic, defining Mignola, where like the way he draws his faces and everything. And I might jump again around because I keep forgetting what year are some of these things. So if there's something that needs to be brought in, oh, like this on the fly, I'm just trying to figure out like what I need to bring in. I'm only gonna. This obviously has his Mignola's whole. There's his name, Bob Wycheck. Probably is how you say it, or Wycheck. Anyways, this clearly has all Mignola in it, right? Which is probably one of my favorite comics of all time, in general. But again, you can see like what in '89, what Mignola's trying to pull off with his covers. Like I feel like you can start to see patterns and understand why he does what he does. Again, he can really draw a good Wolverine, so that makes sense. Again, I was referencing why, because he did this. And then, anyways, so it's funny how that also had some I totally forgot the artist's name. I blanked on it. It'll come to me in a second. But yeah, there's just these solid blacks, the way he feathers certain things, the way he almost kind of makes things look kind of like they're built out of little like stone statues or something, like very Greek Roman statues. But clearly this is the foreground, these pincers to all these crazy alien-y things. And and so that's where he's creating the framing for the real close-up foreground, which I love. Like this is a really good, like these classic covers are awesome. And then in the background you can clearly see all the little dudes that are what the foreground element is. Again, but yeah, you've got a nice triangle composition, and yeah, everything's just really nice and like defining there. There's more. Again, there's more Mignola in some of this stuff. Like he loves this kind of stuff. And then we've got classic 61. This again feels very classic Mignola now, or like iconic style, where this looks like it could be from a Hellboy comic, where the characters in design, they're very close to getting to that like Mignola's, just the way he does his anatomy. The closest person here is in silhouette. You've got blacking a lot out of areas. Here's like an ape sapien mixed with Hellboy in Nightcrawler. Yeah, I really like this, and it just kind of gives this very iconic look. And you can tell when he knows how to draw a character, when he likes a certain character, because they just seem to be far more convincing or aesthetically pleasing than other characters. But also, I think eventually he just like this must be. I want to say this must be in the era of that Topps Bram Stoker's, where he's finally meshing the two. Like he's getting used to what he wants to do with the style and stuff. Like all this is very Hellboy. Like trying to figure out like how the negative space works for things like this. Like this is what I try to what would want to try and achieve, is trying to understand like how do you make this like eagle bird wing like scream, oh that's rock, that's chiseled out, and there's no real hold. Like the lines or the shadows are the lines, obviously, but like the negative is obviously the stuff that pulls forward. The shadows is what's cut into the stone. Again, but yeah, like I love this Magneto. That's got a Hellboy red to it. That's pretty cool. I'm trying to just speed up a little bit more because I have so many covers that I feel like I'm gonna have to do a second part. This one is 66. Again, you got this. Again, you got a very Mignola creature. He always said he wanted to draw creatures. So, like, I'm assuming in this case, would be, before he made Hellboy, he wanted to make creatures prior to that as well. Like that was where the initial desire was. So, like him creating this pincery, again, crustacean-y looking thing. You got his good hold on Logan / Wolverine. He's got more of his iconic little piece of paper ripped signature. This green, I love this green. Needs to be in more comics. He went back to this little screen door pattern. Also, the Punisher comic that I like has that kind of green in it. This has got some. I want to say, is this like the the Brood Queen or something? It's got a very aliens aesthetic to it. But yeah, you've got a very sinister looking, angry looking Wolverine fighting. Again, I want to say the Brood Queen or something. Is that what they call him? I don't know why I'm spacing on the name. All right. Anyway, so yeah, like this again. This screams, I feel like, Pugheggio as well. Like trying to create characters with this kind of aesthetic, backgrounds with this kind of little like underwater, like almost coral, whatever you want to call the stuff that lines the bottom of the sea, ocean. Again, that one is, I feel like you can just look at it and kind of, when you squint, you can see where like the darks, the lights, the shadows, that really stands out that way. And we've got 70 here, and again, like I just love the way he hits the aesthetic on like even the X-Men's like costumes and stuff, and his execution of like Colossus isn't too far from like other people's. Like it still looks like what you have to kind of abide by when it comes to Colossus, but yeah, there's just something about that good, again, I'm sure he started the whole little sharp little dagger tie feat, I'm sure. Again, Image guys cribbing that. Again, I like this style, I'm assuming of Marvel Girl. But yeah, it's just, this is a solid lineup of character designs that I wish there was a whole run, like an X-Men run of just Mignola. Like even if he did like a Frank Miller equivalent, like 4-part comic or something. And then I think I'm just going to end with these last 2 or 3 things. There's always going to be more, I think, in the future. I'll just quickly flash these ones. You got like Gotham by Gaslight and whatnot. But these also, again, these all have full Mignola in them, and I love these. Same with the Jungle Adventures, so those will probably get either their own video or more focus down the road, because I like those, from cover to cover, versus these are just literally the front cover that I'm trying to show off. We've got the New Mutants, and again, there's another one that I think I'm missing that is an annual. So yeah, this one has again a very is what was 91. So again, we're still in that year. Um, you've got clear defining style. The blacks are very black. The his choice of what the face looks like in something, in a character. I know he obviously did an inside piece for New Mute. Is it New Mutants? I forget what that is. The one that Rob let him do like a dream sequence or whatever, and it's probably one of the best New Mutants or whatever comics, just because he's the one doing the art in it. But yeah, there's just again, just screams like his choice to make certain things is very apparent. And then the last ones I've got are a 1990 X Factor, which again, this one has again a very iconic look. Where again, like not everyone can say like their covers will jump out, will leave an impression on you, or just have that style that like only the way they executed it really kind of commands the certain like image or visual. Again, that's why like I think Todd McFarlane is very good at that. It's like he knows what how he tries to execute like the iconic look of something, or how how it leaves a lasting impression on you, and like stuff like this where of course you've got these circular patterns. You've got a very ominous looking character with the way he's posed in center of the cover. And then you've got like Beast, and then again you've got a very early Hellboy era style, I think, approach to this design. And again, just very distinctive cover. Like this one always sticks in my mind. And the last one we will look at, and it's going to be X Factor 70. Again, this is going to be probably 91 as well. Yeah, and so again, you start to see like where him as a artist goes by this point, where again there's a lot of the dark blacks, just like it's definitely the classic case of when in doubt, black it out with him. But I feel like he excels at that, or he really is like a great example of the blacking out is not just out of like indecision or inexperience, but more of like a statement, more clear. There's a clear usage of it, and then of course you've got like these smoke clouds and stuff that billow up off the sides. Again, characters are fading in the background, and they're kind of almost like in the case of like where certain parts are like they just are completely omitted because they're a dark color anyway. So it's just like you can just barely get enough of that character depending on what part of their body is going to be picked up by light more likely, or more or less. But again, yeah, like again, I love the way he executes X-Men characters, and you could definitely tell that you go from, just to kind of summarize in summary, you could see kind of like where like something like this where there's still blacks in here, but there's something about this looks a lot lighter. Like there's an intent, like there's not a contrast that really shouts, versus something like this where it's all real dark in tone. I think when something busy like this is happening, I think it's harder to understand what's going on here versus if this is all busy. I feel like I can tell what's going on here better. I don't know why. I don't know if the way the composition is created to where this busy work is harder to understand than like a lot of like this is, I don't know necessarily if it's busy, but like there's a lot of components going on in there. And I think it's just like maybe a case of, again, you marry the two where like here's a group shot of like X-Men and like what he decided to do with like certain characters like Wolverine there, and how he was trying to black out certain areas versus how he blacks out in like silhouettes people. Like no one's really in silhouette in this, you know. So like clearly there's more confidence in what he wants to omit or keep with something like this versus, you know, this. And even again, when you have multiple characters, again, you're going to want to pull some of the characters in and out of, you know, the where some of their body parts are and stuff. So like it's just interesting to see how like when you have them side by side, like him attempting to do something equivalent to this and this at the same time, in a matter of you know, at least 5 years. You're just like, huh, okay, well, like this clearly has it, you know, where like the shadows are still doing form work, and they're still like, you know, okay, he's making the inverse of, I guess, what's supposed to be the light supposed to be hitting or whatever, and blacking it or whatever. Like it's kind of weird where I feel like this is like a trying to do both effects. Like he's trying to, again, it can kind of be, I guess, said with this as well, where he's trying to black out pieces and stuff, and maybe not knowing what he's wanting to achieve here, so it doesn't really come off like it's non-committal maybe, versus this where I feel like this is far more intentional and far more like confident, where the light source is far more understood, where it's all, at least with these three characters right here or whatever, like especially with like Beast, like you can tell where like the light, the dark and whatnot is far more comprehensive here than like trying to figure out like where's the light. I guess the light's coming down as well, but like I don't know, like it still feels like this is maybe not so much as I guess just not as executed properly, where this just seems like, and that's where like this you can mistake with for anyone else's art, right? But then here it's like I feel like it's unmistakable that this is Mignola, you know. So with that, this video is way too long once again. I apologize for making long videos when I want to make smaller ones for people, but yeah, Mignola again is going to be a constant reoccurring character in the comics that I review or inspiration that I talk about. So if you like this and you want me to do, I don't know, maybe do like, let's do another cover, exclusively just cover appreciation or like spotlight on any of the guys that I had mentioned prior, or within this video. And I've been Four Eyes, and I'm out.